What thing happened to you that, at the time, was horribly embarrassing but now is one of your favorite anecdotes to tell? Come to think of it, it wasn't even this embarrassing, but at the time I was absolutely mortified, so here goes anyway. I was walking around the city center, and there was this lady giving pamphlets, and walking past her I took one, expecting nothing more than a simple thanks, have a nice day. Instead, she looked at me straight in the eyes, pamphlet still in both her hand and mine, and said with utmost conviction, "Jesus." I was completely taken aback and spent the longest second of my life looking at her in absolute silence before I said the first thing that came to my mind. "Tell him I said hi." I still don't know what went through my head, and I left as soon as I finished the sentence, leaving her no time to answer and my face red as a brick. TLDR. A pamphlet made me say hi to Jesus. That sounds like a great one-liner if you were going to kill a nun. That's got to be the time I was super butted. First time I ever went clubbing in my first year of university, a girl I was grinding and had sitting on my lap for a while had a major leak. We get home at 3 AM absolutely wasted and my entire front was covered in blood. Took a while to live that one down. We even have a big group photo where it's clearly visible and stayed as a friend's profile picture for a number of years. A number of years. Just say a period and be done with it. When I was 18 and working at a very tough, physical job in shifts, I was having electrical trouble with my van on the way home from the night shift to my trailer home. I was totally trailer trash. Then, the day had been long and I was not in a happy place, and my van started backfiring and stalling, less than a block from my trailer. Being the hothead I was at the time, I began screaming at my van and pounding on the dashboard, as if that would help anything. I was having an hysterical temper tantrum over a mechanical malfunction. I finally said frick this when it was clear the van would go no further, got out, slammed the door, locked it, and then 3 cop cars surrounded me in the van. 6 cops got out, guns drawn, yelling for me to get up against the van. I was terrified. I'd never had a gun pointed at me, let alone 6. They searched me and searched the van, asking me what the heck was going on. One of my neighbors thought I was shooting someone to death in the van. Between the loud backfiring and my hysterical screaming and pounding, once the cops were satisfied by my story, they all got quite the laugh out of it and were nice enough to offer me advice on the mechanical problem. But I was never so embarrassed in my life, before or since. I couldn't even show my face to the neighbors after that. That was the day I decided to get control of my temper. Now, I find it pretty dang funny. Story time, kids. When I got back from Desert Shield Storm, my CO and first SGT met me at the airport with my wife and promptly gave me the month off. I went home and indulged in the sorts of things a married man might indulge upon returning home. The wife called into her work explaining the circumstances and let them know she wouldn't be in the next morning. At this point in the story, it's worth noting that while in the combat area, I slept on my gas mask. This was to make sure it was close at hand in case the fesses struck the rotating metal blades. I mention this because at 5 AM the next morning, my wife's alarm clock went off. I had no idea how much that sounded like a chemical alarm, and why would I? So when my still drunk butt woke up to that, I dove off the bed with my pillow. Still not awake, I proceed to yank the pillow out of its case and start to try to put it on over my head. The wife is now sitting up and watching me, and starts laughing her butt off. It took me about a year before I too thought it was hilarious. TLDR. When returning from a war zone, be sure to turn off alarm clocks that might otherwise go off in an unexpected fashion. Not long after coming back from Iraq in 2005, I woke up to what sounded like gunfire. I threw my wife out of bed and made her low crawl into the kitchen. I got about halfway there when I realized that it was just fireworks as it was almost the 4th of July. I'm not all that embarrassed by it anymore, but not one I tell many people. Good times. I've told this story before, but here goes. I was taking a shower with an ex-girlfriend and I was having some tummy troubles. I had to fart and I knew it would smell extra bad in the shower, but I decided it needed to be done. Well, I accidentally farted a whole diarrhea crap all over her legs. I mean, it was a huge crap. Totally painted her from the knees down. She freaked out and pushed me out of the shower. I slipped and hit my head on the toilet. The relationship didn't end well and wasn't good throughout, so I prefer to look at it as payback for crapping on me for 2 years. Crapping on me for 2 years. Almost asked for that story. Realized it was metaphorical. I went to the cinemas with my friends once to catch a werewolf movie. When we got to the front, we were enough to occupy a whole row. They told me to save their seats before they all ditched me to buy food. They didn't come back until the movie had already started. There was a gory action scene on screen when they got back, and since I wanted to get a chance to buy food but not miss out on a big chunk of the movie, I decided to run out of the cinema as fast as I possibly could. During my first few steps though, I fell forward yet somehow managed to recover by pushing off the floor with my hands. The thing is, I didn't get to recover completely, so I stumbled forward all the way until I hit the wall at the end of the aisle. There were screams as it happened. Then I realized I pounced on all fours all the way down the aisle, just like the werewolves on the screen. It was embarrassing then, but remembering that it actually happened cracks me up. I'm laughing so freaking hard imagining this. When I was in kindergarten, my brother was in 4th grade. Many times when we would both come home from school, he would tell my stories of this kid in his class who was truly a vulgar little weirdo. He was that kind of kid who would eat disgusting things, insult people constantly, and, most importantly, had an abundance of inappropriate phrases that he'd spew off, which my brother would regurgitate to me later. The one that stuck in my mind, however, was "lick my dong," a real winner with my childish sensibility. Because I was only 6, I had yet to understand the nature of anything being sexual, as I just thought this phrase was a funny, gross thing someone would say. One day, when I went to the local farmer's market with my parents, we bumped into a few of my teachers from school. A few of them were good friends outside of school, so when we had bumped into them, they were all hanging out in a group. Naturally, my parents started chatting them up, while little 6-year-old me was eagerly trying to edge my way into the grown-up conversation with something of value to say. Finally, I found my time to strike. One of the teachers began talking about a former colleague, who, in her words, would always say the grossest things. Thanks to my brother and his vulgar buddy, I had the perfect thing with which to interject, as I flung myself into the conversation with an "oh," like "lick my dong," and simultaneously began thrusting. I'll never forget the looks of horror from my parents and teachers. Made me feel a bit weird about going to school the following Monday. I still haven't gone back to that farmer's market. TLDR. Told several of my teachers to lick my dong at a farmer's market when I was 6. One time I was flying from Long Beach, California to Dulles near DC. I'm in the waiting area, and I see a girl from my school. Being a freshman in high school at the time, I was pretty much in love with every girl I saw. But I had a special crush on this girl, Annie, for all of a month, cause she was a cute little theater geek who was one of the nicest and bubbliest of people I had ever met. I never was that kid who was afraid of talking to girls, so I went over and shot the crap with her while we were waiting for boarding. On the actual plane, she was all the way in the back and I was right over the wing, so I didn't see her during the actual flight. So, for some background, I'm terrified of airplanes. On an airplane, I have to be able to see the horizon and the earth out the window. I have to know what's going on. I will sit in a window seat and grab the armrests really hard for the entire flight. My arms and neck always ache for a day or so afterwards. If we are going through clouds, or it's at night over the ocean, I flip out and go into an anxiety attack and completely shut down. So I'm doing my usual thing, trying to fly the plane through the armrests and staring intently through the window while trying not to make any noises or freak out the people next to me. This flight was somewhat bad because it was at night, and there were clouds everywhere, and whoever was on the window seat on the other side of the plane had closed the window so I couldn't see the horizon or the ground if the plane turned left. So, basically heck. But then the unthinkable happened, and I had to go to the bathroom. I have little nightmares about airplane bathrooms. No windows. Modern airliners all have this computer software called Airborne Collision Avoidance System. Essentially, it uses radar to tell if a plane is too close to another plane, and makes it automatically dive if it thinks it's too close and might crash. So guess when it malfunctioned? While I was peeing. I scream in terror. I wasn't the only one in the plane doing that, actually. While the plane goes into a nosedive, I freak out and zip up too quickly, causing myself to scream in pain. I was the only one this time. I also have a scar now. The pilot has corrected the plane by this point, so I clean myself up and sneak back into my seat while everyone is distracted by the PA message telling them what happened. I run into Annie a few days later, and we were all like, weird, we saw each other on that flight. That dive thing was weird. Yeah, and then she says, yeah, some guy was screaming in the bathroom, and he kept on screaming. It kind of creeped me out. She will never know it was me. I just got my first kiss from a crush I really had it in for junior high. Turned around to leave straight into a giant support beam. When I had my first kiss I missed on purpose because I'm a P. She thought it was adorable. I was mortified. When I was working on the farm I had to pick up Mexicans from the airport in a short bus. But the bus broke down in stop and go traffic and I gently rolled into the unmarked cop car in front of me, landing myself 4 tickets. I cried a little bit. Now I cry and laugh. When I was 6, I was at my brother's birthday party and heard my mom yell out that it was time for cake. I saw I was closest to the door and took my shot. I knew I would be the first to get cake. The other kids ate my dust as I ran to the first slice and straight into the glass door. Next thing I remember, I was on my back watching the other kids eat cake and I just said no. Once my neighbor texted me, got any bread? I wasn't too sure why he was asking for bread, but I told him I had half a loaf of whole wheat. I then found out he meant if I had any money. I am not a smart man. To be fair, that's a silly expression. We'd had a house party. It was a big deal. About 50 people there. Tents and gazebos in the garden. And some people had crashed, so we had camp beds and the like spread around the sitting room. Basically it looked like a disaster relief zone. We were binging Sense8, flopped around the room on various sofas, camp beds, the floor, all hungover as crap. In walks the entirety of the national team for a fairly minor sport which we all played at some level. Some of them were crashing with us the next day, just as a sex scene starts. Naturally, you can't just switch it off because that would look even more suspicious. So we ride it out. It'll just a few seconds. To give you a sense of what's happening, right? Number. It switches from one couple to another, and then to a threesome, and then some guy in the gym. And then, as it continues to switch between them, they start interposing themselves into each other's scenes, until there are 8 naked people writhing around on screen for minutes on end as this national team stands at the back of the room in disbelief, with all of us absolutely losing our crap as it goes on and on. Literally the funniest situation I've ever been in. I know that scene, lol. It came on while I was on a plane trip and the old lady next to me was glancing at my screen every now and then. Had a big grin on my face the rest of the trip. 15-year-old finally got the courage to ask my crush out. I approached her in the hall at school, and right when I started talking, saliva shot out of my mouth onto her face. I believe the technical term is gleeking, but she got this horrified "did that just happen" look on her face. I mumbled an apology, left, and it was another 4 years before I recovered enough to ask another girl out. Haha, I'm lying in bed laughing so hard. Ugh, I've had this happen, but it's worse when it shoots out and lands perfectly in their mouth as they are talking. That time I fainted in a very popular coffee shop right off Union Square Park during the lunch rush, and they called an ambulance and took me out in a wheelchair-like stretcher. Ugh, so dramatic. I was thoroughly embarrassed. It was my second week at a new job and I called my boss from the year to say I wouldn't be returning from lunch and I'd see him Monday. It was a Friday. 9th grade English class. Sitting next to a girl I totally had a crush on and was actually talking to her. I was chewing on an erasable pen that I didn't know was under pressure. Heard a loud pop and felt my face get wet. The pen completely exploded and covered my face in blue ink, like Blue Man Group covered. The ink apparently not erasable from skin, at least for a couple of days anyway. Also never got the girl, but at least it's a funny story. It was my 16th birthday and of legal age in the UK to get a lottery ticket scratch card. In my birthday card my parents had slipped in a scratch card. I was so excited giving I didn't know the odds of winning big. I started to scratch and lo and behold I had won £3k. My birthday and winning 3k, best birthday ever. My dad and I practically ran to the local shop to cash the card in expecting a manager to congratulate me on my win. The lady scanned it in and she says, with the most disappointing look on her face, that I have won a thing, not a penny. I was gutted, truly disappointed. It turns out I didn't scratch it properly and managed to not scratch the one thing that connects all the things together in order for me to win. Dad and I walked home like England had lost the World Cup. It was like a family member had died. I had never been more sad at a situation. Since then though, I have always won money back on a scratch card, so the universe seems to hate me. TLDR. Thought I won 3k, didn't. I was hooking up with a girl in my first year of college. I had been drinking Everclear that night. We were both naked and all of a sudden I burped a bit. Tasted that 95% alcohol and puked a little on her. I then leaned over the bed and threw up all over her clothes. Smooth. Probably when I was staying with my then boyfriend, now fiance for the summer. I have epilepsy, and I had a seizure while going to the bathroom. This caused me to crap all over the floor. He came down because I'd been gone 45 minutes and he wanted to see if I was okay. He found me in a post-ictal state trying to clean up this mess, but since I was post-ictal I wasn't really all there, so I was basically just making it worse. So he got me in the shower and while I got cleaned up he cleaned up the mess and bleached the floor. And when I was done showering he got me in some clean pajamas and tucked me in on the couch upstairs and sat with me all day. It was horribly embarrassing at the time, but now I guess it proves how very much he loves me. I often tell him that I owe him one totally gross cleanup in our relationship. If we have kids I guess I'll be taking at least one nasty blowout diaper. And an upvote for that man also. I was having sex while drunk as a 17-year-old. Ripped my foreskin into shreds as finishing. Ignored it for a few weeks then promptly retore it when having sex once again. Circumcised about 3 months later. In the UK it's not very common to be cut. It's one of my go-to hilarious stories now I'm mid-20s. Once when I in middle school, I was extremely sick with the flu. Our neighbor's extremely hot college-age daughter was staying in our guest room because her parents had run out of room for her. So I'm sleeping on the couch because I didn't want to get up and move. And I wake up in the middle of the night thinking that I had to fart. Well, I barely tensed up and ended up crapping my pants like, a lot. It was an entirely liquid crap. Being about 12 or 13, I had no idea what to do with myself. So I just yelled, "Moo'em." I crapped my pants over and over again until she told me to clean up and throw them in the wash. The hot college neighbor heard everything. I took my 3-year-old son and my wife to Winter Park Ski Resort so my son could see snow. Wife and son were going on a dog sled next day, only for 2 people. So I made a last-minute decision to rent skis and ski boots for first ever ski lesson the next day, while they would be on dog sled excursion. Despite being the slowest to learn in the class, I mastered the easy green slope by the end of the 3-hour lesson. Decided for last run to try blue, intermediate. Big mistake. After falling about 10 times and taking forever to get skis back on each time I decided to walk down slope. No ski clothes, but soaking wet Dockers pants. Had little girls gracefully wafting by asking if I need some help. Returning the equipment I realized to my horror that since I wore the ski boots to walk to the slope from our hotel room, I now had to walk back 2 miles barefoot on ice. Definitely must have looked like the biggest dweeb. The time my picture of me in my GED graduation gown ended up in Huge Butt North Dakota book. I had gotten my GED about a year earlier, went to graduation and all that. Full on ceremony. It was okay because I had a few friends graduating with me. About a year later, I was walking into a Walden's Books and they had out front a huge display for this North Dakota book that had just come out. They had a book on display already open, and to a huge butt picture of me in my graduation gown, all cheesed out and looking like I was ready to take on the world with my GED. It was embarrassing for me. I don't know why. AWW, this is actually pretty adorable. Me and a few friends take a yearly road trip from Florida to Alabama for a big motorcycle show. We load all our crusty old bikes on a trailer and drive 12 hours to party and watch races all weekend. So it's Friday night, pretty late, and 3 of us are riding through downtown Birmingham looking for a bar, and we find this place that is packed. Looks like your typical preppy Alabama bros in Oxford shirts, boat shoes, and shorts, and your typical college girls. Cool, so we head up to the bouncer and he asks, are we here for the show? What show? Yin Yang Twins. Now this was in 2014. I hadn't heard that name in like 10 years, and the crowd that was there didn't seem to fit the bill. So we said nah, but we'll hang at the bar. So we hang out for a bit, have some beers, shoot the crap. Then my stomach starts grumbling. Frick, maybe it will go away. 5 minutes later it's worse. Now I don't want to crap in a bar bathroom, but I may not have a choice. Tell the boys I'll be back. Go check the bathroom and there isn't a door to get in and there isn't a door to the stall. No way I'm using this bathroom to have a bunch of drunk frat bros storm in on my truck stop food and PBR fueled crap. Tell my buds I gotta bail ASAP and find something. It's 1 AM at this point. There ain't crap. I walk to the end of the block. Nothing. Other end. Nothing. I start throwing on my gear and start the bike to make a run for it, and it hits. There was no way I was making it back into the bar, much less riding down the road. And then I see it, my holy grail. The back alley. A set of stairs out the back of the venue, a wood fence, and ramped asphalt. I get up there in full gear, squat with my back against the fence, drop trow, and what can only be described as the BP oil spill of shoots comes out. I manage to tear enough of my boxes off for a wipe and get the heck out of there. That's when I realize that the stairs I see is the backstage exit. Hop on the bike and ride my crappy butt back to the motel, and spending the next hour in the shower laughing. TLDR. Caught the runs out back of an Alabama bar while the Yin Yang Twins were playing inside. My lifelong dream has been to go to a Yin Yang Twins concert, and you crap on my lifelong dream. The time I got stung on the penis by a ground hornet. Don't pull out fence posts whilst wearing shorts. Spent the better part of a morning with an ice pack on my doing. I don't recommend it. Fun story though. Doing. That is by far the funniest typo for a synonym of penis that I have ever seen. I was a volunteer note taker for a deaf girl at my college. We had a pizza party for last day of class, and the pizzas were all placed on tables at the back of the room. The deaf girl sat at the front and had no idea that the other students were already grabbing slices and the pies were going quick. I went to tell her there was pizza by making an upside down triangle with my hands, followed by me making the gesture of eating the triangle. I think I had inadvertently told her I'd like to eat her out at the back of the classroom. This based on her laughing and blushing. I'm hard of hearing. Know some sign. Can confirm you told her you wanted to eat her out. When I was 8, at a stilt beach house in the middle of nowhere, it's dark. It's raining and I went downstairs on flashlight to get a book from the car. Stepped on the half blind, stone deaf, so old it's white golden retriever who had gotten in the car somehow. Proceeded to run screaming, sobbing, tripping up the stairs. By the time I got inside, all I could do was sob "there's a lion" in the car over and over. I find it hilarious now, but at the time, GTFO. Quick hide a dentist. Around Christmas time a couple years ago, my entire family was coming home to visit. I have a bunch of brothers and sisters and a few in the military, so it was a pretty big deal for us all to be together. Before anyone was home, I was home alone taking a poop, and I'm not going to lie, it was super messy. I remembered that we had baby wipes because my nephew was young at the time, so I ran with my pants down to fetch them since no one was home. Later that day, me and my mom were cleaning the house and she goes to move some backpack on the ground and something brown smears across the carpet. She thinks it's weird and asks what it is. I honestly had no idea. She continues to rub her toe in and then proceeds to get down on her hands and needs to smell it. Once she does, she screams out "It's POOP." That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks and I had to explain to her what happened. When my brothers and sister came home, one of my brothers brought a friend from the army too. My mom made me tell them the story. I honestly think it's more embarrassing for my mom, and I will gladly tell it to anyone who wants to hear. Dude, you gotta at least use TP for a couple swipes before you try to move around. Source: I accidentally dripped hangover diarrhea on my car keys at work one time. My best friend posted a Craigslist ad in my name with a picture of me and my real phone number in the no strings attached sex section of Men for Men. I'm straight. I was offered pay to be given a BJ. Several tried to convince me to send pictures of my dong and that maybe I could be gay if I just tried it or drank enough. I'm half black. The post was titled Hot and Halfrican 19. That or when my mom took me to the strip club for my birthday. I caught rotavirus and was crapping liquid, but there was a punk rock gig I really wanted to attend in a town around 60 miles from mine. You can see where this is going. I took stool hardening medication and hitchhiked to the said city. Gig and after party went smoothly, but in the morning I woke up with already dried crap in my pants, washed up a bit, thrown out my underwear and hitched back. Upon reaching my door I've got the cramps. I needed to go now, but my mother apparently left a key inside the lock from the inside. I was shouting and frantically ringing the bell that she would hurry. Then she finally opened the door and started cussing at me for being rude. The dam broke. I wasn't wearing my underwear. The crap ran down my legs, down into my shoes and onto the hallway floor. I have never seen my mother laugh so hysterically. In the 6th grade I went to Washington DC with a bunch of really smart super people and I, the lazy but intelligent kid who was awkward and didn't understand what was going on. We went to the changing of the guard ceremony. I went through about 5 disposable cameras throughout the trip and there was always one in my hand. But since it was hot, the super people all decided every kid got customized water bottles with each person's name on it so we could stay hydrated. The problem was when we went to the changing of the guard ceremony, I had a water bottle in one hand and was trying to take a picture with the other. It didn't work out. I snapped the picture, and the water bottle dropped. It rolled down the stairs and right in front of the guard. He stopped, screamed for everybody to stand back, then called the police, the fire department, and everyone else you could dream of. The police were asking everybody to back up and we all were panicking. An old woman was telling me it probably happens a lot. It was a mess. Finally they realized who the bottle belonged to and that it wasn't a threat. And since my full name was printed on it, it was returned to me under the condition that I took better care of my belongings. Literally the most embarrassing moment of my life, but my go-to story to tell. TLDR. Almost got arrested for bombing a guard at Washington DC when I was 11 only for them to discover it was a dropped water bottle. I'm an idiot who now has a thing called a backpack. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.